Joining us, staff writer for The Atlantic, Elaine Godfrey, MS Now senior political analyst, host of the Runaway Country podcast and on Crooked Media, and contributing host of Pod Save America, Alex Wagner, and managing editor of The Bulwark and MS Now contributor, Sam Stein. Thank you guys for joining me. Elaine, you've been writing about this. You've been listening to Andrew Schultz's podcast. Is this a big reversal?
Hi, thanks for having me, Katie. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's not sudden. I think that it's been, about 6 months, 8 months of this. Andrew Schultz was pretty frustrated with Donald Trump, like almost immediately after having endorsed and voted for him. And this is just sort of the Iran stuff is just sort of the tip of the spear, honestly, the latest thing that he's frustrated about. But it is a big deal. I mean, he is sounding like so many other people in this space. And these, as you said, these are real thought leaders, even though they may not want to be. They're thought leaders in this space.
They're thought leaders, Alex.
When I hear Elaine say that, a chill goes down my spine.
She's not wrong.
I know she absolutely is not wrong. She dutifully watched. I think she said in this great piece in The Atlantic, almost all of Andrew Schultz's podcasts, which is like, I think you get a special prize, maybe even a Nobel level prize for doing that. But it's true. I mean, these are influencers insofar as they helped shepherd toward Trump a coalition that proved incredibly important for his win, right? And like, you look at the numbers, and I think, just anecdotally speaking, I knew that Trump's support among young people was cratering, but the actual data is pretty staggering. I mean, he won 39% of 18 to 29-year-olds, and he now has a 70% disapproval rating among these people. I mean, you're putting up a graphic here on the Iran war that is unquestionably not winning the favor of young people. Surprise, surprise, the generation that came of age after the Iraq war is highly skeptical of foreign adventurism, in context with everything else Trump has failed them on, and you talked about this in the beginning, healthcare costs, immigration dragnets, which they never asked for, affordability, all of these things that have a real life, real world effect on them, for which they hoped Trump would be an avatar of change. He's just, fallen flat on the job.
Sam, he sold himself as the smart guy, the one who wasn't dumb enough to get into these forever wars, that wasn't dumb enough to listen to these war hawk advisors, these neocons. He was campaigning against the Iraq war, which was shocking at the time as a Republican, saying it to Republican service members in places like South Carolina. I mean, he tried to sell himself, pitch himself as the guy who was not dumb enough to do this. So to hear these podcast hosts call him dumb for being convinced to do this, saying that he was, just so focused on his ego and thinking that he was going to be big and heroic and the great liberator. I mean, they're now realizing something that maybe a lot of Democrats always saw. But it's interesting, especially among this contingent of younger men, when you consider that Caroline Leavitt and Donald Trump won't rule out drafting them. So it makes the stakes so much higher, even still.
Yeah, I think the risk for Trump here is twofold. One is that, as you guys have been talking about, these are the podcasters who were gateways to a whole slice of the electorate that was just politically curious, not politically active, but they did get involved in 2024, and they got involved largely on behalf of Donald Trump. And these people, Andrew Schultz, Joe Rogan, and others, activated them. But the other risk is that they are now potentially turning Donald Trump into a cultural punchline, right? That he's an idiot, that his supporters are dorks, that he's been fooled into doing all this stuff, and that he's a failure. And, Donald Trump, for better or for worse, has had an incredible ability to shape the perceptions of him and the cultural relevance that he has. And to a degree, he loses that control when these people turn on him, when his own supporters turn on him. And that hasn't really happened in the entirety of his political career. These people are not MAGA. They are just politically curious podcasters who kind of got sucked in and came to support Trump. Now, you ask, is it dangerous? Of course, it's dangerous politically, but is it justified? And I would argue it is justified, because there are a host of promises that Donald Trump made to this sect in particular, but the voters in general, that he's just not followed through on. It's not just the stay out of Middle East wars. It's not just to be completely transparent on the Epstein files. He literally said he would bring down gasoline prices by half, that he would bring down grocery prices by half. We are in a place where prices are higher. And at some point, the spin just stops and you can't spin these people away. That's the real danger that he's confronting right now.
He kept saying that the secret to getting all of the costs down was to bring energy down. And for a while there, gasoline was down. And then he launched a war and gasoline is right back up, over $8 a gallon on some of the signs posted in places in Los Angeles, which is not what anyone wants to see. And in terms of the you hit on something interesting. Donald Trump not being a part of the cool crowd any longer and these guys wanting to be a part of the cool crowd. Here's Joe Rogan actually saying what I paraphrased him saying during the lead-in.
That phrase sucks. Here's the thing. Like, first of all, America is great. Make America greater, I'm down. But make America great again and then it becomes a movement of a bunch of dorks, because a lot of them are dorks. A lot of them, these really weird, uninteresting, unintelligent people that have got something they cling to. And there's a lot of people that are just real, genuine patriots. And they're all lumped into this one group, and you got to accept the dorks, too.
Where were they? This has been going on for a long time. Why now is Joe Rogan just waking up to this?
Maybe he wasn't following the travails of Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller's never been cool, but I do think the dork label hurts Trump more than many other labels, because his cultural relevance has been kind of his superpower. And the idea that young men were attracted to him because they saw him as an avatar of sort of machismo and that he didn't have to play by the politically correct rules.
Well, he was counterculture.
Exactly. And now he's been revealed to be kind of a charlatan who is surrounded by dorks. I mean, and they are dorky. I mean, Pete Hegseth is not a cool dude, but we are treated to images of Pete Hegseth doing his thing with his pomade and Stephen Miller coming up with these draconian ideas about where black and brown people belong in our society. I mean, yeah, I think the cultural slights that are being tossed Trump's way are meaningful when it comes to preserving the coalition.
But they're really trying, Elaine, to be cool. I mean, they're going on social media and they're posting, war game compilations that link in movie quotes and memes and like cool graphics and things exploding. They're actively trying to keep that contingent of voters, young men who are consuming so much of TikTok and the other social media apps, to try to get them to stay on board. So I guess if you're looking at it, how much weight do the Joe Rogans and the Andrew Schultzes of the world have compared to Donald Trump's own TikTok account?
I think they have a lot of weight, Katie, because I have noticed from listening to all these podcasts, watching all these social media accounts of the podcast sort of sphere, they are not interested in these like video game style social media hits from the White House Twitter account, right? Like this isn't working for them. The people who appreciate that kind of thing, the memeing, the like attempts to be cool from the White House, these people are already in the bag. They're already hardcore MAGA. The sort of Andrew Schultz, Joe Rogans of the world, that section of people, they're already seeing through this. I think it's a little too late. I think that the only thing that would get them back on board here is if they see some real change, like no more wars, no more spending, that kind of thing, a real reversal. I don't think memes are going to help them out or bring them back into the fold.
Sam, looking down the road beyond Donald Trump, is there anybody that could retake that label in the Republican Party and not be labeled a dork by Joe Rogan?
Are you asking me because I'm a dork?
Well, no, because I'm asking you because you're cool. Because only a cool guy can decide who's cool.
I am not. Let's be honest about it. Although you should go to Alex for that.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. You're not a dork.
Yeah, I see you laughing, Alex. I don't know, honestly. J.D. Vance obviously is the one who seems best positioned.
Does he seem like a cool guy?
I'm not going to make judgments on coolness, respectively, but I do think he's awkward occasionally, and he has this awkward demeanor about him, and everyone has noticed that. But the other thing here to consider is that this is not done in a vacuum. Obviously, Democrats have a lot of ground to make up with this crowd too. It's not like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and Andrew Schultz are suddenly like gung ho. I'm on board voting for Democrats. They are agnostic at best. And so we look at this and we say, well, Donald Trump has really lost ground and J.D. Vance seems super awkward and maybe he can't make up ground. And that's just one side of the ledger. Democrats continue to have difficulty, at least as I see it, figuring out how to communicate to this type of audience too. And they need to get their act together if they want to make inroads, because Trump's losses aren't necessarily their gains.
You're making faces.
I don't know. I just, come on, Sam. Like, the bar is so low for what cool is at this point that I think that, you know.
I wouldn't know.
And I'm not saying you're not cool, but I do think Gavin Newsom is, and he may not be the nominee, but Democrats do possess the skill set to be culturally relevant, to own the sort of viral memes, and to, you know, give up as much, serve as much as they have been served in terms of, you know, owning the internet.
I don't know, but I mean, we're going to get into our next segment too much here, but have they been able to grab onto cultural relevance here, or are they just riding Donald Trump's failures?
I think, first of all, I think it's very hard to be funny as a Republican, in part because so much of the party is founded on grievance and rage right now, right? And I do think when it comes to cultural relevance, there's a reason much of Hollywood and entertainment is owned by liberals, and the reason why some of the funniest people are liberals. And I think when it comes to harnessing the energy and the spirit and the creativity of entertainment, which is what succeeds on the internet, I think the Democrats are going to be able to do it. I think the issue is how much are they going to be proposing their own stuff, and how much is 2028 going to be a reaction to Trump and MAGA.
All right, so you just teased our next segment.
Well,
Good
you're
job.
welcome.
I appreciate it. Stick around for that, Alex. Don't go anywhere. Sam, I've always enjoyed having you, especially today. You're very cool in my book. I'm not the arbiter of cool, but I do live in Brooklyn, so I think that says for something.
Oh, so
that
cool.
counts for something. Elaine, really good to have you as well. Appreciate it. Elaine's like, what did I get into? What did I sign on for?